Self-help books are addictive, and when I was in college, that's all I read. 7 Habits of the Most Effective People, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Outliers, Atomic Habits, and Deep Work, and the rest of them. You name it, I've read it. And since then, I've read less and less self-help books and focused more on fiction, because I felt like self-help books just made me feel like I was productive even when I wasn't. They just gave me that sense of reward before I did the actual thing that I was supposed to do. Now, I'm not saying that you should not read them at all and only read fiction. I think readers should, or people who are interested in reading, should have a variety of categories that they read from, or genres, because it just helps you become more thoughtful and it challenges your comfort zone. But if you've only been reading self-help books, these are 5 reasons that I hope they motivate you to read something else. First, the market is already oversaturated with self-help books, and most of them offer this one-size-fits-all solutions to the problem that they're trying to tackle. And this is not because the author that set out to write those books are bad writers, but to be a successful writer, especially in that genre, is you have to have 2 things. 1, you have to solve a very, very specific problem in a very specific way. 2, you have to target a very specific audience. Sometimes, although we say don't judge a book by its cover, we actually read books for their cover or their title. So we would read a book that doesn't necessarily solve a problem that we have, or even targets us as an audience. So we spend hours and days reading a book that's well written, has inspirational stories, and it makes us feel good about finding examples to those stories, but then it's not really helping us with a very specific problem that we are facing. And this is actually the best way to read a self-help book, is one that targets a very specific problem that you have, because it will then translate into action right away, as opposed to going back to the back burner of your mind and not necessarily use it right away. The second point is that a lot of these self-help books have a survivorship bias. It's basically a common mistake in thinking where we only look at the successful events or people that have made it out of the hardship, and we just analyze their behavior and try to copy it. This term was coined by a psychologist during World War II, where the warplanes that would come back to the military station would have holes from bullets from the enemy. Also, the military just thought we just add protection to the areas that were shot. So they added bulletproof protection to the areas that the airplanes showed where they were shot, and they sent those airplanes back, but that did not increase the rate of planes that came back to the station. So what the psychologist realized was that the areas that planes came back with damages were the areas that you should not protect. You should protect the other areas, because those are the areas that caused the other planes that did not come back to be destroyed. So a lot of the studies in the self-help books only focus on successful people or people that made it, but we do not learn from the failures of the hundreds and hundreds of people that already walked or tried to walk the same path. So you will get a generic advice like wake up at 5 a.m. every morning and you will accomplish anything you want. Yes, but a lot of people are not morning people. Some people do well enough at night, and there is a guiding principle behind that as opposed to a genetic advice. And the guiding principle might be, oh, wake up to do the thing that you are passionate about. For example, if it is writing, when your social circle is asleep, whether it's early morning or later at night, as opposed to just giving a certain time that only works for the person that we are discussing in the book. The third reason why you should not only read self-help books is because it shapes unrealistic expectations. We are all on our own journey in life, and sometimes we will be rewarded with successes that we wish for, sometimes not. Life in reality does not owe us anything, and the only thing that we control is the actions that we take. We cannot control the results. So even if you wake up every day, shoot videos, or write every day, or run, or do the thing that you are passionate about, you might not get rewarded the reward that you expect. Do you have control over the results? Not really, but what you have control over is you taking action and hoping that you will gain the result that you expect or wish for. This also doesn't mean to downplay yourself or doubt yourself. It just means that you are on your own journey and you might not get the things that you want at the rate that you want them. Also freeing, because it helps you realize that you're only responsible for the action. The result is something that you cannot control. And I realized this after reading David Goggins' book, Do Not Hurt Me, and more power to him. The man has accomplished something that no one has ever accomplished, but it's just his thinking, his process, and the way he laid out that book, regardless or detaching from his personal story, is not something that most of us can do. We cannot just be consistent based on discipline and hard work and not have fun. There is something about David Goggins that makes him David Goggins, and if you try to be like him, then you will fail yourself and you will be disappointed at the journey that you are on, which makes you you. The fourth reason is that it creates a dependency on motivation. It's almost like dopamine effect, where you go on social media just to scroll for no other reason. You feel good for a while, but then you feel guilty about it. And I feel like, especially from my experience, that's how self-help books became at some point. They just made me only do work when I read them. When I was reading a self-help books, then I felt more motivated to do the thing that I wanted to do day in and day out. But if I wasn't reading one, then I would go and listen to a motivational speech or like a song that was upbeat, whatever external thing that will give me that feeling of motivation. But then we know that motivation goes up and down, is not consistent, and all we have is to create systems around the thing that we're trying to do to make it easier to sit down and do, as opposed to depending on how we feel. Because honestly, motivation is like the weather. It will change from one day to one day, and it's very hard to predict. So if you depend on it, then you're really not gonna get things done in a consistent manner. And if you can't do the thing that you're trying to do, except if you are listening to a song or a motivational speech or reading a self-help book about a particular topic, then that's a thing that you're probably not enjoying, and maybe you should not be doing, and veer to something else. The last one, and this is I realized after 2 years I think of reading self-help books, is that they're redundant. They just say the same exact thing over and over from different angles. They all say be consistent, ignore other people's judgment, do the thing that you're trying to do every single day, and do it for a very long time. Then one book will expand on one of these points, or a combination of 2 or 3, and then gives you examples and stories and personal anecdotes and research, just to prove that whatever tactics or methodology that they have found works. Some of them will have at the end of their chapters some questionnaire or a practice or like a journaling prompt, just for you to feel like you are interacting with the material, with the content of the book, and it makes you feel good. And I'm not opposed to that, but all I'm saying is that be very selective about what you are reading and how much you are reading of self-help. And honestly, I do not think there is a topic that has not been discussed in a self-help book. I feel like everything that have been said have already been written, and there is nothing revolutionary to be added or something that will change someone's life dramatically. But what it takes is that a few self-help books that speak to you as a person, as someone who's facing a very specific problem, and then just practicing those principles or tactics or whatever that the book is offering, so that you can grow from year to year. I guess all I'm trying to say is read fiction, novels, short fiction, whatever, because you can learn from the decision making the main characters are making or the side characters are making too. You do not need someone else to tell you what to do. You already know what you have to do and what you are responsible for, what you are in control of, and all you need to do is do the thing and write stuff down. That's it. Thank you for watching. Happy reading and keep writing.